So we're humans that are living in this AI-driven world, and we have nervous systems. We are human, and they're either in fight or flight. So if we are constantly on autopilot, there is no way that you have the space, the energetic space for the intuition, the innovation, for all the things that you need to really be a visionary and move things forward and move the needle in your business. If you're just constantly doing, and you're not listening to your team and you're not thinking about taking a pause and what happened? What did we learn in that moment? Should we pivot? Should we pull another lever? If you keep going, there's no way, there's no space for something new and more innovative to come in.
Welcome back to Between Fires and Futures. I'm your host, Tonya Terrell, and today's conversation is one I'm so excited about. I've known Leslie Ann Keeler for nearly 10 years, and in that time, I've watched her bring a depth and consistency to leadership that few others really can. She's been guiding leaders in this work for nearly 2 decades, long before it was popular. And when she began tying these skills to the rise of AI more than a year and a half ago, I knew her voice was one that we all really needed to hear. She's a trusted guide to founders and executives navigating rapid change and AI-driven complexity. She's been invited to speak on some of the world's biggest stages, including Web Summit, South by Southwest, TEDx, because she brings a rare perspective. In an age of accelerating technology, the most powerful operating systems leaders can master is their own mind, their own heart, and embodied presence. Through her intuitive edge framework, Leslie blends neuroscience, psychology, and ancient wisdom to help leaders regulate their nervous systems, access intuitive clarity, and create cultures that actually thrive in complexity. She's worked with Apple, Stanford, Imperial College London, and USC, and her insights have been featured by Entrepreneur, LinkedIn News, Fox, ABC, and CBS. She's helping leaders embody the qualities AI can't replace: trust, presence, emotional intelligence, and connection. And these aren't just power skills for leading people. They're the very qualities we need to infuse into AI itself so that as it becomes smarter and more powerful than us, it carries the instincts to nurture and protect rather than fracture and destroy. Leslie, welcome to Between Fires and Futures.
Aw, thank you for having me, and thank you for that generous introduction. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm so happy you're here. After all the bloopers this morning, we can really get rolling. But it was good to laugh. I really want to get into why do you believe, or what do you believe leadership is truly about at this very moment in history? Because it's shifting, isn't it?
Big time. As of this recording, I think we've seen in the news, there's been some quite staggering things that have come out where the godfather of AI has said that we need maternal instincts in order for humanity to survive and thrive alongside AI. We've heard Sam Altman say that AI is a bubble. We've also heard from MIT that 95% of AI pilots fail. And it's not because of the tech. There's nothing wrong with the tech. It's the leadership of the humans. So I believe what's leadership now more than ever, because AI is really a reflection. It's a mirror of who's programmed it and what are the prompts, what are you asking it to do? It's a reflection of our humanity and where we need to evolve. And I believe that this is a time more than ever to call for balance. We've had this really old leadership model about logic, speed, control, very quote unquote masculine qualities. And in order for us to really bring our humanity and thrive and embrace artificial intelligence, we have to bring in those more feminine qualities, which are really just human qualities of empathy, intuition, collaboration, and care. And so I believe that's essential now more than ever. And so I just feel honored that I'm in this space to be able to bring that. And I hope that people will be called to bring that balance in wherever they are in their work and in their life in general.
Yeah. I mean, I've witnessed you over the last 10 years. And as you started talking about this very thing a year and a half ago, I remember reaching out to you and saying, yes, this is so needed. I also remember thinking at the time, like, wow, all of your work leading up to that moment, it feels like it was for this time in history. You know what I mean? Like, I know that you've been talking about this way before the age of AI, but I don't think it's ever been more important or urgent than it is right now.
Mm. Well, thank you for that reflection and acknowledgement, Tanya. And as you mentioned to your listeners, you've known me for almost a decade. So you have
Yeah.
seen the evolution of my leadership
Yeah.
um, professionally and then my life personally. And I truly believe that we can only lead others as far as we led ourselves. So if we are not emotionally intelligent, if we are not having nervous systems that are regulated, if we are not grounded and present with ourselves, there's no way we can bring that into our teams and our organization. So it really starts with the individual. It starts with the human leader.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I just think for way too long, leadership's been defined by like control, optimization, speed. And in the age of AI, it feels like that is more true than ever. And we need that balance, right? Because when I look at the leaders I admire most right now, it's not about those things at all. It's really about how they show up, how they hold
Mhm.
space when everything is uncertain. And has there really ever been a more uncertain time than right now? So in this age of AI, why do presence and emotional intelligence and these skills matter more than ever? And what shifts when IT leaders bring those qualities forward?
Yeah. So this isn't, I'm just going to bring the data in here because it's undeniable. So, the stats say that 90%, 90% of top performers have high emotional intelligence compared to just 20% of low performers. And leaders with emotional intelligence, they have reduced burnout by 28%, increasing their resilience and clarity. And 67% of employees with emotionally intelligent leaders report higher levels of job satisfaction. And then
Wow.
lastly, teams that are led by emotionally intelligent leaders, they experience a 40% reduction in employee turnover. So this just goes to show that this isn't, when people think that emotional intelligence, these are soft skills,
Oh, I hate
it's
that
not.
term.
I know
It's
it's
power
not gonna
skills,
it's
people.
not gonna impact the ROI. It has nothing to do and no place in business. I can't even count how many times I've heard that, and I just completely reframe that in my messaging and speaking on stages. Is that it's not soft skills. It's human skills. It's
Yeah,
human skills. And as
that's right.
AI is doing all the things that it's automating and doing all those repetitive tasks that it can master and do increasingly quicker and better than we could ever do, that's where it's like, well, how can we bring in more of what makes us uniquely human? Because AI will master that more than we ever can.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
how can we bring in, and Mo, AI thought leader and ex Google executive
yeah.
Mo Gaudat even said the most important skill you can ever have right now and for the future is human connection,
Yes,
because AI will master everything else.
yeah. That's the
So
differentiator.
absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely. And so I
yeah.
think people are realizing now, as we see in the news, then that's what happens in, when there's innovation and that goes, when we're going through these, when we had the industrial revolution, when we had the internet, social media, there's this big moment of, unsettling, right? So there's all this talk
Mhm.
of losing jobs and all the things. But if you think about it, I mean, 60% of the jobs that exist today did not exist
Didn't
80
exist,
years
right?
ago. Did not exist. So we
Yes.
don't even know what those jobs are. My daughter's going to university in 1 year. I don't even know what she's studying for, but I
I
still want
know.
her
You
to
know, my
study.
son's in his third year now, and he went in saying he wanted to be a digital marketing major. I'm like, I
Uh,
don't think that's going to be around by the time you graduate, but
mm,
just follow your passion,
yes.
and the opportunities, the world will present what's right for you at that time. But it's so uncertain. It's like I would not want to be a kid going into college right now because it is
Absolutely.
so uncertain, right?
Yes. And so that's
And
why I think there comes that balance of those human
yes,
skills, that emotional intelligence, that relational
yeah,
intelligence. How are you in relationship with other humans? And you can bring that into any environment, whether you work for someone else or you work for yourself. So I think it's really important to note that, yes, I get it. And I say this with so much love. Yes, we read the news, which is mostly predicated on fear.
Right.
But
Of
what
course.
about thinking about that this is an opportunity to step more into our purpose, into something bigger, better than we can ever imagine?
I
It's
love
just
that.
like, the Japanese, where they have these blue zones, and they have this concept of ikigai, where you do something at the intersection of what you're good at, what people will pay you for, and what you love. It's
Yeah.
like, why, what about we do something like that? It's a very, like, wow, is that even possible? Yeah, I get it. I've lived in Europe for nearly, well, 2 decades now, and I was born and raised in Los Angeles, California. And I get that, America, it's very much that autopilot, like very competitive, very burning the midnight oil. I get it. And I also know, now living on the other side, and this very dichotomy of, being able to, your life and your work, and an actual balance, is that there's so much more to life than just your work. So
Yeah.
what if there is something bigger, better than ever we can ever imagine on the other side of this AI,
Yeah.
that's freeing
Yeah.
up our time, as you always say,
It
right? Freeing up our
is.
time, and it's liberating us.
It is. It's liberating us. It's freeing up our time. It's taking on some of the mundane, repetitive stuff. And if used correctly, can really like unlock human potential and human creativity. And going back to leadership, I think we're in this moment where people are just totally burnt out on that performative leadership. Like they want the real thing, presence, clarity, humanity, connection. Like that is what we all crave.
Yes, we all crave it. And I think a lot of us don't understand what's possible is because we haven't had models, we haven't had leaders in our life, whether that's in our teachers in school, our employers, and even goes all the way back to our parents. If we haven't had a model of an emotionally intelligent environment or other human being, there is no way that we can hold that space for others, let alone ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. It just feels like AI is pulling us faster and faster and faster into the future. And, you know, everybody's racing to adopt it. And at the same time, there's this hunger for something slower and more grounded, more present. Um, why do you think those qualities matter so much right now? And what really changes when leaders like really, really lean into those qualities?
Yeah, there's a saying that is actually was first adopted, I believe, by the U.S. Navy SEALs, that says, uh, "Slow is smooth, and smooth is fast." And I think
Yeah.
there's one that's been equivalent in the personal development field, where slow down to speed up.
Yeah.
So I
I,
think in our very high tech world, and with this very AI driven world, it's very imbalanced, very much about speed and doing things very quickly.
yeah.
And if we can just slow down, so I'm just going to go into, like, just because people kind of understand more, like masculine, feminine. So masculine, you think very, very fast, very driven, strategy, very linear, and it's like all about go, this energy of go. Where feminine, and this is not gender specific, it's just what we associate with those
Right.
qualities, is more about going with the flow. How can we tune in? How can we slow down? How can we take those sacred pauses? And it's about, yes, having a balance. I'm not saying not have strategy and not having something, have systems in place.
Right. You need
But
both.
if
You need
you,
the masculine
yes,
and the feminine.
absolutely, we need both. Mother Earth needs both.
Yeah.
We all need those both conscious energies in a
It
balance.
is that analogy, right? The river. You need the river banks for structure, and you need the river to flow.
Yes,
And
yes,
that's
absolutely. And so we're humans that are living in this AI driven world, and we have nervous systems. We are human, and they're either in fight or flight. They're either regulated or they're not regulated. So if we are constantly on autopilot, there is no way that you can get that you have the space, the energetic space, for the intuition, the innovation, for all the things that you need to really be a visionary and move things forward and move the needle in your business. If you're just constantly doing, and you're not listening to your team and you're not thinking about taking a pause and what happened? What did we learn in that moment? Should we pivot? Should we pull another lever? If you keep going, there's no way, there's no space for something new and more innovative to come in. And that's why people are burnt out. We're seeing the systems are burnt out as well. And so I just think overall, this old model of leadership, we're realizing that it's not sustainable. It's not
Yeah.
sustainable. And AI will do all those other things much better than us. So we have to just remember our own human operating system, our nervous system, emotional intelligence, human connection.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting. So this podcast is for IT leaders to provide just really actionable, useful content for like everything that they're dealing with, right? And I just find it so fascinating that like sometimes we invite IT leaders from our own IT community to come on as a guest. And so I've had 2, 3 maybe, who have not talked. I mean, they're senior IT leaders, CIOs, and when we kind of flesh out what they want to talk about on the show, it's never about the tech. It's almost never about the tech when I'm talking to IT leaders specifically. Now, when our clients come on, they want to talk about the technology and how that solves IT leaders' business pains. But when IT leaders come on, I just find it really fascinating that what they want to talk about is leadership. And so, we had a CIO come on a few weeks back, and he wanted to talk about the importance of human-centered leadership. And another one just recently wanted to talk about leadership skills versus management skills. So I find that fascinating that those that are actually in the role, that is what they want to talk about. That is what they see as most important. And the truth is, we see IT leaders every day who are just drowning in the urgency, and AI can either accelerate that chaos or it can create clarity. And I'm really like the deciding factor is the leader's presence. And leadership isn't just about what we do, but about the energy that we bring, right? So from your experience, how can leaders start to shift from this the performing leadership at speed and KPIs and urgency and all of that, and how can they make the shift from that to embodying it? And what really changes when they do?
Yeah, and I love that because I listen to your podcast and I've noticed that as well with some
Yeah.
of the the guests that have come on, and I love that. I love that they're bringing in their what's really relevant, what's happening right now, and what's important. I would say, embodiment is really about coming into your body. So a lot of my work that I do with either individuals or with teams and groups or on the stage is how can you get out of your mind and into your body? How can you do just like simple practices to regulate your nervous system? For instance, our breath, it's the one thing that we can physiologically control. So even if you do a 30-second, 1-minute breath practice before you hop into a meeting, before you hop into, that Zoom call, that will help you to be more regulated, more calm, and to be able to make decisions more clearly, right? As opposed to being reactive. So breath is a big one. And then also movement, right? So if we're staying in chairs a lot, or if we're sitting down and we're not actually moving our body, how can you get into your body? So I have clients, and I do this even in my workshops and organizations, is like you just dance or shake, like literally move that energy. We're talking about
Such
energy, right?
simple things that we can do, right?
Move the energy through you. Simple 1-minute practices,
Yeah.
very practical, and it's very experiential. This is like, try it, put on like one of your great dance songs and then just shake your body. There's some retreats that exist where people just shake. They just shake to regulate their nervous system. And then there's just like, wow, that was like so
Yeah.
profound and so simple.
So easy. And I mean, animals, I watch my dogs, they just do
That's
it
it.
naturally.
Yes, that's it. So animals, they shake off that nervous energy, but as humans, we have learned to hold it in. As
Yeah.
women, we've been taught, be a good girl. As grown-up men, as little boys, they were taught to, don't show emotion. And
Yeah.
so we bottle it all up. And so when we are stressed, that our breath actually constricts, our muscles start to constrict. So how can you bring more expansion and space into your physical body so that you can start to regulate your nervous system and that you can start to lead from more clarity, more confidence, and you're not again in that reactive state.
Yeah. That's so good. Yeah, I definitely, I feel like I spent years in rooms with leaders who were performing leadership, like saying the right things and hitting the right notes, but you can feel when someone is
Mhm.
truly embodying it. Like the energy in the room shifts when a
Mhm.
leader's truly embodied. You don't just hear it, you feel it. The
You
whole
feel
team
it.
calibrates to that steadiness. And, kind of bringing this back to AI may be able to crunch numbers and do research and write incredible papers and automate processes and um, even streamline operations and all the things, but it can never hold the nervous system of a room the way a human
Mhm.
leader can.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's why I've been really recently, well, not recently, last year, being called to do more group work.
Yeah.
I do work with individuals, but really my passion right now is group work. I find that when people can feel the co-regulation that happens within a group, I mean, there is so much more transformation and trust that happens when you are in a group
Yeah.
and doing a breath work. I mean,
Yeah.
wow, it's not rocket science, like let's do like a, 30 seconds of breath before we go into our strategy meeting.
I know it's available to everyone. It's so simple. Why don't we all do it? I know, like when things are really, really like highly like stressful, and you feel that anxious energy building. Like I'm only three breaths away from completely shifting it. It's so simple.
Yes. Yeah. And it's really about just getting into the practice like
Yeah.
anything. So, like an actual sit and meditation practice or learning an instrument, it's like consistency. And then you start to form those new neural pathways where it feels like, oh, this feels normal. This feels safe. It feels safe to feel like this. And that's where we want to get. That's where we want to be in the body with our energy and with our nervous system.
Yeah. Yeah. One thing I notice over and over, especially in tech, but this is probably true across the board, is just how much energy goes into like process, data, automation, those sort of things. And yet, what really sticks, what really works is connection. And you say connection is the strategy. So, what does that look like when a leader truly embodies it? And what, I guess, what does that really mean? Connection is the strategy. And what does it look like when a leader truly embodies it?
Yeah, I mean, for me, connection, it's not just a leadership buzzword. It really is the foundation. And
Yeah.
first and foremost, like I said, we can only lead others as far as we've led ourselves. So if, as a leader, you're not connected to yourself, you're not connected to your breath, you're not connected to your energy, which in fact is your emotions, it's just energy in motion. If you're not connected to that, then there's no way that you can connect with your team. You cannot connect with others. So a big part of that, well, I would just say, let's, for example, say that the leader is, emotionally in tune and connected with themselves and they go into a space, is like I said, start the meetings with a moment of breath. You can also maybe have people, this is what I do in when with groups, is I have like go around and just one word to describe how you're feeling in this moment, just
Mhm.
one word, just so as a leader you get a pulse of like what's the energy of the group, because you
Yeah.
may have come in with a slides and a presentation, but if there's something else happening that you're not aware of, which happens, then perhaps you need to change up the presentation, or there's something that's more relevant that you need to speak to your team about in that moment. So
Right.
getting a pulse and energy of the group. And then I'd also say just taking a pause before we respond. Again, there's that very reactive energy, like we have to get a word in there, we have to speak. One of the things that I brought in that seemed very, very very simple, but I know the teams noticed, like, wow, that was really simple, but they felt really heard, is to
Mhm.
go around, like I say, a talking stick. Like, comes from ancient wisdom, but it could be anything that you have in the room or what you want to use, and that people can speak when they actually have the talking stick in hand. Because what's happening is that people are interrupting each other. You're not really hearing each other. And then you're not really being able to hold the space and understand your team and what's going on and what needs to be done. So giving people a space to actually be heard and seen for what's happening in their work, what's happening in that moment. And then as a leader, really tuning in and listening to what is being said. And then
Yeah.
again, not coming from reaction, but really coming from curiosity. Like, okay, how can I hold space? How can I pivot or change this meeting based on what's being called forth?
Yeah. That is all so good. Um, and so relevant because like AI can process information faster than we ever could, but it can't connect the way humans can. And that's still our work as leaders. But this is such a shift for so many leaders, especially in tech, right? They're taught that strategy and connection are separate things. And what you're saying is no, connection is the foundation.
Mm,
And I love
yes.
that because in the age of AI, connection is the thing we can't ever outsource.
Mm.
AI can process faster than us, but the competitive advantage as leaders is that connection.
Absolutely. And I think people are realizing that now, as we've tipped the scale even further into speed and very, they're realizing like, that's not all what's to it. And,
Yeah,
yes, we can use it, this AI, but what's really here for us, at this moment in time? What's being called forth? How are we being called forward as a leader at this time?
yeah, yeah. And some of those, I mean, they're undervalued leadership qualities. I feel like they've certainly been undervalued leading up to this time in space right now. Empathy, care, attunement. They're like we were saying before, they're labeled soft skills, which I just can't stand. Um, how do you see them becoming the real differentiators for leaders in today's world of just constant change, AI, the pace of innovation, all of that?
Well, I think if you have the empathy, the care, and the attunement for yourself and with your team, you're able to create a space, an environment where people feel safe to speak up and share what's happening in their department. They're able to make suggestions, that you probably wouldn't normally have, just because you're not, in their world and what they're doing. There's also more space for creativity, as people, again, feeling safe. And when I say safe, I mean your nervous system feels safe.
Right.
Like you feel safe to be seen and to be heard. Um, and again, also you just lead with better decisions. Again, not taking those pauses, whether it's 30 seconds or 30 minutes, taking those pauses and not having to be reactive. Like, I need to make a decision. Yes, I get it. We need to make decisions. We need to make them. But sometimes the space and the silence can bring in the biggest inspiration and innovation,
Yeah.
as opposed to keep doing. So again, it's just finding that balance. So I'm a big proponent of, your teams, your people feeling psychologically safe,
Mhm.
because then, they're more higher performance, right? They want to
Yeah.
stay, they trust you, they're loyal. If they don't feel safe, if they if they don't feel safe with you, then,
Sustainable
they're
performance.
not going to speak up. They're probably, looking for their next job.
Yeah.
And who wants that? You want people that you can trust, that are there for the long term, and you're there to get the job done, but also
Yeah.
to enjoy doing it.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. We just kind of experienced this internally this week. It's interesting. And what comes to mind, just because I'll share the story in a second, but what really comes to mind is um, when there is that safety. Not only do you get like the loyalty and the like sustainability, right? driving fear around like KPIs or any of that. If it's fear based, it doesn't create safety. And so you might get temporary lift in performance, but it's never sustainable. And that's something, internally, like if performance dips, we've got some leaders who want to go to that, fear-based, like shock and awe. Let's get performance up and let's come in really hot. And so it's funny, this morning, the reason I was on a meeting early this morning is I pulled my team together, because that happened on Tuesday, and I pulled my team together to just sort of like explain where he was coming from and the bigger picture. And yes, he came in too hot, and from now on we're going to deliver it differently. But what happened in that meeting after, because I took on, I addressed the team felt unsafe, and by a message that was delivered by a leader on Tuesday. The team felt unsafe, and they were hustling but super stressed and really under pressure. And like that might get a tiny little lift in performance temporarily, but it's not sustainable at all. And what happened in the meeting after, just acknowledging, like, I hear you, I see you, I know that this is stressful. Let's reframe some of this and make it easier. And let's like pull these things off your plate because they're not important right now. You could just feel like the energy shift, and there was such a like sigh of relief. And we're about an hour, almost an hour after that meeting ended, and performance is already like crazy. I'm seeing all the dings on my team's messages that performance is already much better than the day that, there was like a little bit of coming in hot. And so that's just top of mind because it just happened this morning. And I think it really kind of lands that, these are power skills. These are the exact skills that determine whether a team thrives or collapses in change. And at the end of the day, you just can't outsource empathy. Like AI can't do it. You can't automate care. You either embody it or you don't. And the result of that is phenomenal when it is really felt and people feel seen and connected. And it's just, it's an energy shift in the team.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Yeah.
know that lift in performance is far more sustainable, and we don't have to keep coming back at it really, really hot, because now they know the big picture and they're inspired to go do the work because they were seen and heard.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. And I love how that's just synchronous with right
Yeah,
before
I mean,
our
it happened this
podcast.
morning. It is why I was like a minute late to this and not fully prepared. But
Yeah.
that was more important, right? To like not let another day go by where they were feeling like that.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and
No, it's huge. I mean, people, it's really big when we are really truly just seen and heard for what's present for us in the moment. It's 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 awe-inspiring. Again,
yeah,
it regulates the nervous system. It starts to form new neural pathways of, wow, this is safe. What's possible after this? I mean, sky's the limit. I mean, it's just like, and I'm going to say this because it's coming through for me to share this right now. And I know we haven't really gone into the psychology
no,
yet,
no,
but at the end of the day, we're all little kids in adult suits. So, you know, we if we didn't feel safe, if we didn't feel we could speak up when we were younger, because of our caregivers, mom or dad, which is myself included, and most of the leaders I work with, at least my generation,
Mhm.
um, then that will carry forward in our professional environment. So it's really about, okay, yes, we have those practical tools, those 1 minute, 30-second practices to do on the fly, on the ready. But it's also about doing the deeper inner work that is more sustainable. Because at the end of the day, if we are so much in our masculine and we feel like we can't pause, that we have to speak over someone else, and we don't want to listen to someone else, and we're not very, very good at communicating, there's a reason for that. And most of the time it's, well, I haven't met a time where it isn't. It's connected to our childhood. And
Yeah,
so how can we And it's not about dredging up our child, but just having an awareness of where is that coming from? Where am I really being triggered? Is it really this person that's sitting across me in the meeting, or is it something in someone else?
Yeah.
And doing some work around that and really stepping deeper into our leadership as humans. Because at the end of the day, and I know somebody asked me this at Web Summit, they asked me, do you think AI coaches, AI therapists could, you know, take over human therapists and coaches? And my answer was very, very simple and straightforward. It's like, I think it has its place. I mean,
Yeah.
especially for people that maybe don't have the resources to have a certain amount of support. But I don't think a bot can ever replace a human to human relational experience,
Yeah.
because how we relate in the world, how we connect our energy, our nervous system, it's human to human. And however we're showing up in this world as adults, and in our leadership, in work, in life, and in love, it's all connected to our childhood. And so how can we really step into uh, yeah, a better human for ourselves by doing some of that work? And yeah, that's what I think is really important as well, for leadership today, to do that work.
Yeah, that's such a good point. How would so for leaders who've like not maybe don't have the awareness, because so much of this is about self-awareness. Um, so for leaders who've like not done this type of work or have not had the awareness, maybe up until hearing this, what's just a simple action step for them to get started?
Yeah, I think a simple action step is when you're feeling triggered, when you feel your palms getting clammy, or your heart's racing, or something happens when you're having a conversation, if you're in a meeting or you receive an email, ask yourself, is this really about this or this person? And just maybe close your eyes and just maybe put your hand over that part of your body where you're feeling elevated, where you're feeling dysregulated,
Mhm.
and just tune in and ask yourself, where is this really
So if my
coming
heart's
from?
racing really, really fast, just put my hand on my heart, close my eyes, and tune into where is this coming from?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because sometimes, and I've worked with leaders before, um, it's our mom or our dad, it's their voice, or
Yeah.
how we saw them, how we saw our caregivers, mom and dad, how we saw them handle stress. It gets imprinted in our nervous system. So, for instance, I'll speak for myself. My mother was very passive, aggressive, very quiet. Grew up Catholic and then converted to born again Christian, and so she didn't really speak up a lot. She was very much an avoidant attachment style, and so I grew up with that attachment style, thinking, oh, that's how you live and work and breathe in the world. That's how you are in relationship to people, is when you have conflict, you just go the other way. You have conflict, you don't say anything because you want to keep the peace and you want to keep people happy. But that's not the way to live and be in this world. There's a way to have healthy conflict, to have the communication, to have the conversation. And this, of course, is not just in life and relationship, but this is in our work. So when people come to me and they say, this is what's happening in work, in teams, this and that, it always has a root. It's always systemic to something outside of that office, because at the end of the day, it could be a different face, it could be a different company, but it is the same pattern. It's like what you see in like divorces. It's like the second, third marriage. It
Mhm.
ends
Same.
up being
Yeah.
bigger statistics of divorce, because unless they did the inner deep work, it
Yeah.
is the same pattern, but just a different face.
Yeah. That's so true. I can think of so many examples of that, that I've seen and experienced myself. So that's so true. So what would you just say to those people, those leaders who, oh, they just don't want to look at that? It's too painful, or they don't believe it. What would you say to them?
That they don't believe that it's
Yeah, that they
systemic
don't
if they're
believe.
being triggered.
Yes, yeah, that they don't believe that it could impact like how they lead teams, or if they just don't want to look at it.
Hmm. I would ask them, why don't you want to look at it? What is the opportunity cost if you don't look at it for
Mhm.
yourself, your team, your company? Um, that's what I would ask them. What's the
Yeah,
what are you going to lose? Um, and I get it. There's a lot of people that don't want to go there. But I believe when I believe there's always a time and place for everything. I think we're all obviously on our own individual paths, but still having very much this human experience. And so if someone is somehow, maybe they're listening to this podcast or they see like a post on LinkedIn and it just sparks something in them, some curiosity. I would just encourage you, like, go ahead, go down the rabbit hole, do
Yeah.
some search, listen to some other podcasts. There's so many teachers and ways of living and being in this world. Just find what resonates for you, right? I remember when there was, yoga. I mean, I was taught to do yoga when I was younger, but there's so many different types of yoga. I did dynamic yoga as my first yoga class. I'm like, this is freaking hard. I don't want to do yoga. This isn't relaxing at all. And then I realized, oh no, there's different types of yoga.
Yeah.
There's different teachers and different music. So I would just encourage, if someone's feeling like they're being tapped on the shoulder, that maybe there's something there, just,
Yeah.
explore. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm curious because I know you're a student and teacher of ancient wisdom. So I'm curious to hear your perspective on like what can ancient intelligence and wisdom traditions teach us about leading in today's world of AI?
Hmm.
Ancient intelligence and artificial intelligence. I loved your newsletter about that. So I want to talk about that for a minute.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I'm actually currently training in Andean shamanism in the Quero lineage. So, for those that may be new to that, it's the Quero are these high Andean medicine people, these shamans. They were the descendants of the Inca, and they fled into the high mountains during the Spanish colonization to protect their wisdom. So, they are these deep wisdom keepers that for 500 years they've lived in these remote, isolated areas, and really preserving this wisdom rituals. And only recently have they come down from the mountains, and not to convert, but to remember with us, because they know that this is the time that to share these teachings with our modern world that we've forgotten. And they're really teaching us. I remember one of my teachers, I said, what's shamanism for? And it's to help us learn how to leave this life awake. So
Mm,
it's about how can we return to consciousness, and how can we live that in our waking life, and we don't have to wait until the next life. So it's also to teach us that the feminine is it's not gender, it's a life force. That leadership is not about domination, it's about the collective, it's about it's about stewardship, and that living, healing, being in this world, it doesn't come from speed or strategy per se. It comes from presence. We keep
mhm.
talking about this, from presence. So really, like ancient intelligence, ancient wisdom, shamanism at its heart is it's about working with these unseen forces. So we talked about energy, these unseen forces of nature to restore balance.
Yeah.
And I call this ancient intelligence. And in the AI era, it's more relevant than ever, because artificial intelligence, it's accelerating us, but ancient intelligence is what's going to ground us. And
Yeah.
so leaders who thrive now are the ones who can hold space for both of those.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. And this is what I meant earlier when I said I feel like just witnessing your journey over the last 10 years, I feel like everything that you have done up until this point in time feels like it was meant for you to lead people in this era in this way. Um, because, the shamanic studies, the ancient wisdom, and then also like the neuroscience. It's really cool. Modern neuroscience is finally catching up to what ancient traditions have been saying forever. Regulate the nervous system, return to presence, connect to something bigger. And it really does feel like the bridge we've been missing in leadership. And I love that like juxtaposition of um, AI, right? Artificial intelligence meets ancient intelligence, and how necessary that is right now. Because the truth is, AI is only going to amplify the energy leaders bring. And I'd love for you to talk about, because I know so much of your work is grounded in modern neuroscience too. So I'd love for you to talk a little bit about that, and Also paint the picture of what shifts when the leadership energy is grounded and human versus fractured and
Mhm.
reactive.
Hmm. Okay, how much time do we have left? So yeah, about the neuroscience. So yes, I'm a trauma informed master coach as well. So very much about the nervous system, which I keep talking about. But there's also, there's parts of the brain that we can access through certain ritual, through different ceremony. So, for instance, when we were children, 0 to 7 years old, we were like a sponge, like our whole environment and how we were raised, we take it in as truth. And it's during those times as childhood, we're in this theta and alpha state of our brain. And that's how all these patterns and beliefs, they seep into our subconscious mind. And as we become adults, we're actually operating 5% of our conscious mind. So there is like a whole part of that iceberg, iceberg theory underneath that
Mhm.
whole part of ourselves and our mind that is actually running the show. 95% of our unconscious, subconscious mind is running the show. So how can we start to lower that water? How can we become more conscious? How can we start to be more high performing and use those parts of our brain, use those parts of ourselves that we have forgotten but are still running the show? So,
Mhm.
for instance, in shamanism, they use tools like a drum or a rattle, and this helps you to go into those theta and alpha states. So, something that you would get like when you're in a deep meditation, relaxing meditation. And
Mhm.
it's from those parts that you can start to access those altered states. So, whether it's just pure relaxation, you don't need to have some big visioning experience, or maybe you have a memory. And then from that memory, you start to make the connection of maybe that what happened with mom and dad, and that's why I'm so, it's so difficult for me to really feel safe in a romantic relationship. There's all these things that can happen when we start to allow ourselves to come into those parts of those brain waves, so the
Mhm.
theta and alpha brain waves. So some of those tools that we use is the drum and the rattle. Another thing is fire ceremony. So for thousands of years, as humans, we have sat around a fire for warmth, to cook food, for love making, dare shall I say. And so we have this whole ceremony around fire. When we do some sort of fire ceremony, and I've done this on offsites, I mean, it may sound woo, but it's very powerful. It actually accesses that reptilian part of our brain that starts to associate this fire ceremony with, okay, this is like something, it accesses that subconscious part of our brain where
Mhm.
we can start to allow something very powerful to let go or something new to come in. So for instance, at an offsite that I did last year, it was like end of the year, Q4, like what are you letting go of, like in your leadership, in your work, in your life. Let's write that down and then let's put it and let's set fire to it. And then
Mhm.
after that, let's call in, what are you visioning for the new year? What is it how do you want to feel with your team? How do you want to feel at work? How do you want to feel? Feeling is a big part of, this neuroscience and energy, because everyone's too attached to what's happening here, but that embodiment is coming into the body, and the feeling state is what's going to bring you into presence and not to be disconnected from your own self, your own energy, emotion, and body. That was a long-winded answer. I don't know if I answered your
Yeah, you
question,
did.
but tell
No,
me,
it's so good.
lead me back, lead me back.
No, it's so good. No, actually, really, really good. And you know what comes to mind is like we have a family cabin in South Carolina, which we try and get away to occasionally because you're just 100% unplugged there. It's in the middle of nowhere. We could see all the stars. There's no light pollution. And our favorite thing to do as a family is go out back. We have a fire pit out back, and the like best connection that we ever have is like sitting out back with the fire. Kids might do s'mores. And, my son plays the guitar, and it is like mesmerizing and so relaxing. You can feel your nervous system just relax. You can feel your DNA unwind almost. So that's what came to mind when you were talking about the fire ceremony, because there is something I'm sure everyone resonates with this, that there is something just, we're so like primally connected to that. It's
It's
a part of
ancient.
us. Yeah,
It's
yeah,
ancient intelligence.
yeah,
It's what our ancestors were doing for thousands of years and we forgot.
yeah, yeah. And more important now than ever, I think. More urgent now than ever. So
Yeah, and
yeah,
when you tap it, I love that. I love that you do that with your family and that you're sharing that. And when we tap into those more very, ancient intelligence, and then we start to activate those other ancient parts of our brain, that reptilian brain, then it starts to activate, those more where we have the higher executive function, so the prefrontal cortex. So it's like a whole, my intuitive edge, it's a whole neuroscience based framework, but for what it is, it's like all four elements, they can co-activate in real time. It's not like you have to do like one day I can be here and one day I have to wait to like have my executive functions fully turned on. It's like, no, it's like, again, having the awareness, having the tools, forming those new neural pathways. And again, it's just doing those short practices and just really feeling. Again, we're talking about embodiment, so that means coming into your body and feeling the difference, feeling what it's like to be regulated, feeling what it's like to be safe, and
mhm,
then what's possible from that space.
yeah. I love that, it really is tuning into that and sort of just clearing out the noise that puts us in touch with the deeper, higher aspects of ourselves, and what is really possible when we are in tune with that. I think sometimes the noise and the autopilot just takes over and people feel so disconnected. And my fear is that in this age of AI acceleration and it's just like rapidly growing expectations and pressure, what that is going to do to companies and teams and even the human race. Um, and that truthfully, it is the things that we can do to counterbalance that are so simple and so accessible to anyone. Um, don't even take a lot of time. And, anybody can pause before responding to a fire by just taking 30 seconds to breathe. Um, there's nobody who can't access that. So that's my wish for anyone listening, is just how simple and accessible and actionable this work can be. Um, and how important it is right now in this, AI age where AI is a mirror for us and amplifies what we're doing as humans. And it's more urgent than ever to counterbalance what AI has been trained with. Like the models are built on are these old, outdated beliefs and leadership styles, and how important that is why what you're talking about right now is probably one of the most important things that can be talked about right now. So I really honor the work that you do. I mean, when you started speaking about this, more than a year and a half ago, it's just like the light bulb went on for me, and it just feels like it's growing more and more urgent every day. Um, so if you could leave leaders with one invitation about what it means to lead with both humanity and vision in the age of AI, what would it be?
Well, before I answer that question, I just want to acknowledge you, Tanya, and hopefully you don't cut this part out. But like, I admire, respect, and honor with deep reverence your leadership and what you bring in this space. Very, very masculine-driven space. I love what you're doing with your new company, well, relatively new, and how you're turning it on its head, and this model where, wow, like we're actually going to like think about alignment and
Mm-hmm.
real connection and sustainability. How about that? How about
Oh,
that for business?
and it's crazy, right? Because it's working. I think when we first tried to do it, it was met with a little bit of resistance from clients when we said, no, we're not going to serve you. Like, yes, we've always served you in the past, but we're not going to serve you. We're going to serve the IT leader
Mm.
and listen to them. Like, what a novel concept. We're going to listen to
Mhm.
them, and we're going to ask really good high mileage questions to get a deeper level of understanding about what they really, really need.
Mm.
And then we're just going to play matchmaker. We're not going to, this space is called demand generation, which was always so stupid to me because demand organically exists in the market. So we don't need to generate it. We don't need to drum it up. And when we serve the tech company, all they want is more and more leads, more revenue. And most companies are set up to deliver that in my space. Like, let's give them what they ask for, more leads, more revenue. And all it does is create noise and like this novel concept. What if we just serve the audience and match make them? What would happen then? What if we eliminate the noise that everybody's so sick of and just listened,
Mm.
ask good questions, and then find that person, a vetted partner who is a perfect match? And I to me, it was just so obvious that this is where it should be: alignment and authentic connections. And, and in the beginning, I had to explain to clients, we're going to serve the IT leader, not you. But the end result is you're going to be served better because all we did was eliminate noise and connect two parties who need one another. And that just makes so much more sense. And, we view ourselves as matchmakers, not lead generators, but our clients view us as lead generation. And it's so important that our team stays grounded in, we are here to serve. We're going to be present for those IT leaders, really, really listen to them and serve them with whatever their needs are. And would you know it, that industry averages for lead generation conversion from lead to pipeline or deal registration is about 5% today. It was maybe 15% 15 years ago. It's dropped down to 5% because of all the noise. And our clients who follow our best practices, which is serve, don't pitch. Selling is service, do not pitch. Read the notes, serve them in the way that they need to be served. Those clients are converting at 50%. And so it works. And I think that is, that is what you're talking about in action. Like, that's what it looks like in action. And I kind of find it funny because clients will ask, like, what is your secret sauce? What is that? Like, being present, listening, asking good questions, and then communicating that to you so you can serve better. It's not that novel. It's not rocket science. It's connection, which is what we all want, which is what you have been talking about. And it's just such an important and urgent conversation right now.
You
And that's
are
the
a
hard
walking billboard for this podcast. You're a walking billboard, and I know you've done the work. I know you've done the inner work. That's how we sort of met on this
Yeah.
conscious business mastermind almost 10 years ago. And that's
Yeah.
how, you don't just live it, you bring it into your work and with your teams. So I had to just acknowledge you and bring that up here on the podcast because I'm always so inspired by you and what you're doing in that space. And it just goes to show like what is possible. And it's not just, okay, we feel good, but like, look at the numbers.
Yeah.
Look at the numbers.
The numbers
Listen to
tell
your
you it
clients.
works.
They're happy. They're coming back or
Yeah.
they're staying with who you match them with. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think that is the heart of it for me. And that's why the work that you're doing, like, I am such a cheerleader of your work and I want your voice amplified everywhere because there's really, there's so many conversations about AI right now. You look at, my YouTube feed is nothing but these types of conversations. And we're hearing the alarm bell ring, like with Jeffrey Hinton, the godfather of AI, talking about maternal instincts are what we have to program in for the continuation of the human race. Like, when they become more powerful than us, we need them to love us the way that a mother loves her child. And that's a real alarm bell. There's nothing more important, and the urgency is accelerating. And so the work you're doing is, I think, some of the most important work that can be done. And I hope that we are leaving the audience with the urgency and importance of this, and also how simple it can be to start this journey and do the work, and how accessible some of these practices are, because AI is going to keep evolving whether we're ready or not. And I think the real question is, are leaders willing to evolve with it? And that is necessary. That's what you're saying, right? That's the alarm bell you have been sounding, is that it's necessary. And I hope what people hear in this conversation is also that we're not powerless. You know, I think a lot of people have thrown their hands up and said, like, it's already hit the tipping point. There's no coming back from it now, but we do have agency, and we can embody these skills if we lead with presence and emotional intelligence. And we can shape AI to reflect the best of us, but we have to start now.
Mic drop. If you're not watching the video, I just did it with my hand. The end, period. We're done.
Well, I mean, the work you're doing is so important. And all I did was recap what you have been saying for a really long time now. Like, you have been the first person that I heard talking about this. And, you know, it's only been very recently in the news that we're hearing these AI experts start to talk about this. And so I'm just like, thank you for having the intuition and insight and courage to talk about this.
Thank you. Thank you, Tonya, for recognizing, acknowledging, and being one of my biggest cheerleaders. And absolutely, yes, there's an urgency for this work. And just going back to one of your last questions, my invitation is somehow through the urgency, give yourself a permission to slow down.
Yeah.
Just slow down and just try it. Try it, you know, one text message or one email. Don't respond right away.
Yeah.
Give it 30 minutes and see if your reaction is different.
Right.
Just, you don't have to act right away. Give yourself space. And if you don't feel like you can, I'm writing you a permission slip right now. Slow down. Smooth is, what do we say? Slow is smooth and smooth is fast.
Yeah. It's so true. So true. And actually, it's funny that you just said that, because that was what you were talking about right now, is the whole reason I named the podcast Between Fires and Futures, because we're so busy reacting to the fires that are present in our lives right now. Like, we're so busy reacting to the chaos. But the future that we want to build really needs to be built on that foundation of slow, grounded, connected energy. And so that really was like the whole reason that I wanted to name the show what I did. So I love that you just tied all that back together. And God, this has been such a great conversation. This is a great place to pause. And this is not a conversation that ends. I think it's one that we need to keep alive. As your work evolves, I'd love for you to come back and talk more, because I feel like we can go another 2 hours and just not cover all the stuff that I want to cover. But this is a conversation I've really been craving personally, and really, really wanted to like amplify for more people to hear, because it's, like I said, it's urgent now. So if there is one thought that you want to leave people with, what would you say that is?
Okay, well, we said slow down, so I'll choose something else, because I have like a whole one I want to choose.
Yes.
I would just say your presence matters now more than ever.
Yeah.
Your presence. And how do we get there? Slow down.
Yes.
And awareness of our energy, emotional intelligence. Yeah.
Yeah.
Your presence, your humanity.
Yes, that's it, right? So how can people find you? Talk about where, like your website, share your LinkedIn, and we'll link everything in the show notes.
The best place to find me is on LinkedIn. So Leslie Ann Keeler. Do connect with me. Let me know what was your biggest takeaway from this podcast episode with Tonya. I'd love to connect with you. Or you can also go to leslieannkeeler.com.
Perfect. Beautiful. And yeah, I would recommend everybody follow her Intuitive Edge newsletter. It's one that I share constantly because it is exactly on this topic that we're talking about right now. And I don't think there's a more important topic to address. Leslie, thank you. This is fun, and I'd love to do it again.
Thank you for having me.